I'm once again reminding ministers on the requirement in the Government's own ministerial code that major announcements should be made in the House in the first instance and not to the media. This applies to Secretary of States. It is disappointing that the Secretary of State for Defence gave a speech on television yesterday and no statement from the Government has been made in this House. And I hate to say, the House went up at 3 o'clock yesterday. There was a huge gap of time that could have been taken. This is the third in a row from the Defence where it's been put to the outside, to the media, rather than here. We are elected members of Parliament. All ministers serve this House, not Sky News or the BBC. So I do hope the message is going back. The ministerial code is not fit for purpose if this continues to happen. So I hope it's going to be used and make sure that ministers take it seriously. So please, as I stated yesterday, matters relating to defence of the realm should always come to this House first. I now call James Cartledge to ask his urgent question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Secretary of State for Defence if he will make a statement on the use of lasers by the Russian spy ship Yantar.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I would like to make a statement on the Russian main directorate of deep sea research.
Minister gently. Unfortunately, it's not a statement. That's what I was wished. We are answering an urgent question. And I think that is the big problem, that somehow different departments have decided that statements don't matter. I know it's not the gentleman in question, but I hope the message is going to go back to the Defence Secretary and that people are listening how important this House is comes first. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will pass the message into the broader team. I'd like to make some comments on the Russian main directorate of the Deep Sea Research Programme known as GUGI. As the Secretary of State for Defence described yesterday, the Russian research vessel Yantar is part of this programme and is used for gathering intelligence and mapping undersea infrastructure, not just in the United Kingdom, but across many other nations, both in Europe and indeed across the globe. The UK understands that the Yantar is but one in a fleet of Russian vessels designed to threaten our critical national underwater infrastructure and pose a threat, indeed, to our economics and our way of life. Russia has been developing a military capability to use against critical underwater infrastructure for decades. GUGI is developing capabilities. It's deployed from specialist surface vessels and submarines that are intended to be used to survey underwater infrastructure during peacetime, but then damage or destroy infrastructure in deep water during a conflict. Russia seeks to conduct this type of operation covertly without being held responsible. Such capabilities can be deployed from surface vessels like the Yantar. That's why Defence directed a change in the Royal Navy's posture so that we can better track and respond to the threats from this vessel and many others. The Yantar has once again been operating in and around the UK's EEZ for the second time this year. During this time, she was continuously monitored by Royal Navy frigate HMS Somerset and the RAF's P8s. We will ensure that the Yantar is not able to conduct its mission unchallenged or untracked. But this has not been without difficulties. A laser assessed to be originating from the port side of the Yantar was directed at British personnel operating one of our P8s. This was a highly dangerous and reckless attempt to disrupt our monitoring. The P8 continued to monitor the Yantar's activity. Personnel, when they arrived back safe in the UK, were medically assessed post-incident, and no injuries were sustained. There was no damage was sustained to the aircraft or her equipment. Russia does not want us to know what they are doing. They do not want us to know what the Yantar is up to. It does not want the world to know what it is doing, but we will not be deterred. We will not let the Yantar go unchallenged as it attempts to survey our infrastructure, and we will work with our allies to ensure that Russia knows that any attempt to disrupt or damage underwater infrastructure will be met with the firmest of responses. And I'd like to finalise by saying a great thank you to the brave men and women of our Royal Navy and RAF that continue to keep us safe at home and abroad.
It is unacceptable that we are getting the Minister's update on a major national security incident 24 hours after the Secretary of State gave his press conference. Have ministers learned nothing from the total shambles of the SDR when defence companies got a copy many hours before parliamentarians? But turning to the incident itself, this appears to represent a serious escalation by Russian forces in close proximity to our homeland. And given the priority of protecting our service personnel, and I welcome the news about the P-8 pilots being unharmed, can the Minister outline what mitigations are being taken against the evolving laser threat involved? But surely what this incident really underlines, Mr. Speaker, is that Russia remains a serious threat. That being so, we couldn't help but notice that the Defence Secretary got the podium out for the media yesterday, just as the Defence Select Committee was publishing a damning report about Labour's total lack of progress on boosting our defence readiness. The Yantar incident shows the seriousness of the threat we face, but in response, what are the government actually doing? The answer: Labour are cutting £2.6 billion from defence spending this year, surrendering sovereignty of the Chagos Islands, and following their shameful vote this week, they're putting the British Army back in the dock.
Who said nonsense? Minister.
The honourable member is correct. Russia does remain a threat, with a conflict ongoing in Ukraine causing over 1,000 casualties a day. It is the biggest threat the UK has faced in a generation. It's worth noting, though, as we progress, from my perspective, the criticism to the government about not doing anything. You're trying to, collectively, the opposite side is trying to convince us that from 24 years of service and watching the degradation of defence, watching the lowest morale in armed forces, watching houses with families with leaky homes and damp, being equipped with equipment that isn't fit for purpose, watching ships go alongside that haven't left docks in years, looking at a decrepit and delay and downwriting of all of our defence capabilities, what we had to put up for. And now, in the first time in a generation, the military is looking to an increase in defence spending.